Last week, I put out a YouTube poll saying this weekend I'm going to go see Megalopolis. Would you guys like to see a review of this? The number one answer was yes. The number two answer was, I don't know what Megalopolis is. And the number three answer was no. So for those people who chimed in, you could just tune out. Don't watch this then, okay? Like the movie, this review ain't for everybody then, all right? I went into the movie not expecting much. I only really saw the trailer. It didn't feel like your typical modern trailer where, it starts off with bing, like one piano note with reverb on it, and then it gradually crescendos into like this big orchestral version of a old rock song that we all know. It was nothing like that. Like, it just gave a look and a feel. It just gave you a little teaser, a little taste. And that's what a trailer should do. Got me excited. Went to go see it with not many expectations. Overall impression. What I liked most about this was the fact that it felt like an artistic director taking a risk, making this big, ambitious, crazy project that maybe he was the only one who believed in it, and he was just doing whatever the hell he wanted. And I like that. You don't see that much anymore. Perfect example is that before the movie, there was a trailer for this other movie called Red One, and it stars The Rock and Captain America and other names you would recognize. The Rock and Captain America go on an adventure to save Santa, and then Krampus shows up. It felt like such a generic, modern, self-aware, self-referential Disney, Marvel, DC, Netflix level thing. It felt like it was written by ChatGPT. Like if you told it to just make me something that will be really safe and make money, it might spit you out the script for Red One. Megalopolis was the opposite of that. One of the confusing things about the movie was that it was hard to tell whether or not it was being serious. The tone of it was intentionally not real. It's weird, but when you look at the context where under the title, Megalopolis, it says a fable. So it's supposed to have this dreamlike fairy tale quality to it. And if that was their goal, then they succeeded. What can I compare this to? So when I was watching this, the first thing that came to my mind was that it felt like a movie by the Wachowskis, one of their past 4 or 5 movies. Like this felt like Cloud Atlas with Speed Racer's crazy experimental visual editing and style to it, and the confusing fantastical elements of Jupiter Ascending. It had that feel of a Wachowskis movie where it's like it's maybe a little too long. They're tackling ideas that are just maybe a little too big for the movie. Things I liked about the movie were the overall ambition, the visuals and editing. I feel like everything in movie theaters nowadays is like, it's a sequel to a spin-off, to a prequel, to a pre-existing franchise. This was an original thing by a legendary director trying to make some big, ambitious, artistic vision. It's not like anything else I've seen this year. Things I did not like as much about this movie include the characters. I didn't really care for any of them, especially the main guy, and that's kind of important. You're following him, you're supposed to be on his side. Even though I mentioned that this movie has an intentional, dreamlike, weird quality to it, grounding it a little more in a logical A to B kind of story would have really helped ground this whole thing. That could maybe help get its message across too. I'm not 100% on what the message was, but I had fun. The visual style was one of my favorite things about this movie. It looked very unique. Every single shot in the movie had this really stylized, dreamlike fairy tale quality to it that, to me, seemed very intentional and told us as the viewers that we shouldn't be taking everything we're seeing literally. They're giving you the idea, the feeling. One of the interesting things about the visuals of this movie was that I don't know when it took place. The aesthetics of it combined modern day, futuristic looking stuff, 1920s, 30s, and 40s Art Deco New York City look, and ancient Rome. It combined these 4 very different looks and times into one, and it created this really unique feel that I loved the way it looked. To be totally fair, for every visual that I thought was really original, really creative, there were an equal number that I was just kind of meh about. They weren't like really bad. They weren't laughably bad. They're just, some were here, some were here. Obviously, as an editor, I got to say something about the editing, and I also really enjoyed the editing of this movie. I thought that despite the 2-hour and 20-minute runtime, I didn't feel bored. There's always something going on. There's always something different going on. One of my favorite parts specifically for the editing, was when Kylo Ren was having this dream sequence. He was on drugs, he was drinking a lot, he was going crazy. The editing in there, that was so cool. They had all these crazy colors going on. He'd be like upside down, he'd be sideways, there'd be multiple images going on at once. At one point, there was a scene where Kylo Ren was talking, and instead of, the image filling the screen, he was like this big. He was down at the bottom. You took up like 1/16 of the screen. And he was talking to reporters. So anyway, I thought it was original that he was just a little rectangle. The rest of the screen was totally black. There would be these camera flashes from the reporters, which go, and they would just show that for like 2 frames or like 1 frame, like really quick shot. And then it would cut, and it's a little closer to Kylo as he's talking. I thought that was cool. Another interesting thing about the visuals and editing style of this movie was that there was a lot of it that leave the viewer not knowing if it's really happening or not. For example, the main character, Kylo Ren here, he has this ability where he seems to be able to stop time. Whether or not he can actually stop time, I don't really know. Or for example, there was a scene where he was being driven around and they would drive past these statues and the statues would start moving. And you're left wondering, well, that's not really happening, is it? They do a lot of stuff like that throughout the movie that you're left wondering, was that real? Was that not real? Contributes more to that dreamlike fairy tale quality of this. Next, I'd like to talk about the characters and the acting in the movie. So this is one of the areas where I was not crazy about the movie. For example, the main character, Kylo Ren here, I didn't like him. There wasn't much to like about him. He just seemed like a artistic prick. 80% of the time, he was brooding. The other 10% of the time, he was high or drunk out of his mind, going crazy. And the other 10% of the time, when he was coherent, he was just taking himself so seriously, giving these like grand, lofty speeches about like the meaning of meaning and what it means to be the future. We have to see past the now into the future and dream of a bigger future for ourselves and everyone. And it's like, okay, dude. He also had some lines that made him seem very snobbish. I don't remember the exact line, unfortunately, but it was when he was talking to the Julia character. It was just like a top post from like Reddit's high IQ board or something. It was something like I can't talk to people who don't use their brains or something like that. Aubrey Plaza's character, she is just always playing Aubrey Plaza. I don't know what that says about her acting range, or they just hire her to be Aubrey Plaza, that dark, sarcastic thing she has going on. She might as well just have been April from Parks and Rec, just stuck in this movie. Some of the characters' motivations were a little vague. There was one character, Julia, who was the daughter of, I don't remember their names, Gus Fring's character. Honestly, I'm not remembering all the characters' names because they all kind of felt the same. It was like you took the top 10 like ancient Roman names and said, all right, you're Caesar, you're Cicero, you're whoever the hell, Claudio, whatever they called him. It's Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren, and he's Gus Fring, okay? So that's what we're calling him. So Gus's daughter, Julia, did not like Kylo Ren at first. She goes up to his office. He takes her over to his diorama that he's building of Megalopolis, this big thing he wants to build in the city. And he's like, close your eyes and walk through it. And she walks through, and then her eyes are shut, and it goes into like this visual dream world where her eyes are open, and she sees the future and what could be, and all these wavy lines and color and CGI particles and people having a great time learning and creating. And then she opens her eyes and is like, wow, you're right. I love you now. So it felt like she didn't like him. He's like, come, look at my vision. And she's like, wow, you're so genius. I love you. That came out of nowhere a little bit to me. The biggest missed opportunity for me was they cast Lawrence Fishburne, they cast Morpheus as Kylo Ren's butler, driver. He was his assistant. He drove him around. He really didn't do that much. Some scenes he just literally stood there in the background, and I was like, "What? You got Morpheus for this, and you didn't give him anything to do." Next, let's talk about the pacing and runtime for this movie. I thought that you could maybe trim out 30, possibly even 40 minutes from this movie and still retain the same exact plot. There was a lot of time dedicated to just style. This was a very style over substance kind of movie. Style movies are sometimes a little harder to appreciate because if you're not into the style, then you're like, what the hell am I watching? Like, you're just watching lights and colors and CGI and weird editing and stuff. Like, for example, I mentioned Kylo Ren's drug binge he went on and the crazy editing there. That went on for a while, for maybe a little longer than it had to. If you're looking for something with a very straightforward, easy to follow, logical plot that has a nice beginning, a middle, and an end, you're probably not going to like this movie. And that's just because of the experimental visuals, but there was just a lot of like time added to the runtime that was just meant to show the style and the spectacle of the whole thing. And it worked. It looked cool. I was enjoying that. But I could see some people being like, why the hell is this 2 hours and 20 minutes long? Like, are we done yet? There were times when I was like, where are we in the timeline? Are we at the middle or end? Or like, was that the inciting moment? And when the end of the movie came, it really came out of nowhere. Kylo Ren was standing on Megalopolis and it was finished. And the whole movie, I was like, I had no idea of how far he was towards getting this thing done. All of a sudden, it's just done. And he's standing on the structure, and he's giving this, again, big, lofty, grand speech about the future and how we must dream. Should you see this? Well, it is not for everybody. I enjoyed it, because I like weirder movies. I like artistic, strange things. And this definitely fell under that category. This is not a movie for everybody. It's not a movie for the masses. This movie is made by a legendary director, back at it again. He's older now, and he just does not give a crap about the commercial prospects of this movie. He's like the main guy in the movie. He's got this vision, and he's making it happen. I mentioned earlier that trailer for the movie Red 1. If that trailer got you really excited, then Megalopolis is not for you. And if that's the kind of thing you're looking for, something fun and easy, just throw popcorn in your mouth and just look at bright lights for 2 hours, it's not that kind of movie. If you like more artsy, out there, experimental, not as straightforward, movies that do not care about whether or not they make a lot of money, then this is for you. Some parts of this movie reminded me of like a David Lynch movie, of how it's meant to be felt and not explained. You're not supposed to totally get it. It's not supposed to make sense. That doesn't appeal to a lot of people. Some people want to watch a movie and not be confused. I like to kind of just enjoy the ride. If you're that type of viewer, you'll like this. I encourage you, however, to go see this yourself. Don't listen to me. I'm just some weirdo on YouTube talking about this thing. As always, if you've made it to this point in the video, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.